Welcome everyone to today's webinar with Jim Lampert. Over the next half hour or so, him and I will be going over some of the new rules that they've put out that you should consider for survival of this post-pandemic stage we are all in today. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. We want to keep this as interactive as possible, so please post any questions, comments you have either in the Q&A section or in the chat box. I'll be keeping a close eye on both of those throughout our time today. Also, we are recording this webinar, so within the next 24 hours or so, you will receive a copy of the recording for you to be able to use as a reference when you go back and put some of these in place. Now it is my pleasure to introduce you to Jim Lampert. Jim is the Vice President of Service Provider Sales at OpsRamp. With over 2 decades of experience in the enterprise software sales business, we welcome Jim to our webinar today. Jim, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Hey, Aaron. Yeah, thanks for having me today. Welcome, everybody. Just to add to that, I think it's interesting for this audience where I came prior to joining OpsRamp. I was actually a partner of OpsRamp, and a big part of our business was a managed services business, and we run our managed services business on OpsRamp, which we'll tell you about a little bit later. But so I've got a very a background that lived in your world, understand that world, and looking forward to talking to everybody today.
Awesome. I always learn something new about you, Jim, every time we talk, so it's always great.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for joining us today, and let's go ahead and let's dive into this interesting topic as we, again, are continuously entering a new phase of this post-pandemic life. Now that we've been in it for several months, I mean, how is the IT perspective shifting from that crisis response to the next phase as we start reopening or closing or reopening again throughout the country?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think, there's a lot of unknowns and uncertainty that's going on right now with the pandemic, right? We're all living it every single day. I had to fly out to San Francisco recently for some business, and I haven't done that in 4 months. And I can tell you, the whole flying experience again and the hotel experiencing, it's a different world that we all know. But this has created a dynamic, I think, that's an interesting opportunity for the MSPs. It's, our clients, I think the end users, the enterprise has gone from what I've seen as kind of a shock moment. Shortly after the pandemic came about in the March, April timeframe, and things started settling in and their employees were working from home. There was that shock moment. How are we going to support these? How are we going to pivot? How are we going to create this new business operating model? Do we have the technology to support that? Where are the gaps, the inefficiencies? Where are the security holes, et cetera? To now really knowing that this is kind of business as usual going forward. And how do we support this going forward is how do we enhance this experiment going forward or this experience going forward? Where are there gaps? What technologies do we need to look at? What partners do we need to have? So I think people have settled in and people are moving forward. I think there was this small period where there was a pause, and I think they've moved beyond that pause now. And it's now, how do we make the most of this environment? Because this may be the environment that we're living in for a period of time. And even I think once we get through this, I think, I know I talk to a lot of my friends and people that I know in worlds like the financial world and in New York and in Wall Street that aren't traditionally used to working from home, that are now saying they're not sure they want to go back. And they can do their job remotely, and they can do it with collaborative tools and video tools and all the things that we're now using on a daily basis. So I think it's really about supporting that new world moving forward, because I think it's going to be a hybrid world going forward. We'll have employees working from home, employees working back in the office environment. And a lot of the change that we've been trying to help our customers manage now is only being accelerated.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my whole world got flipped upside down. I used to run all physical events, and now I get to spend time with people like you. So it's been a learning curve for everyone, but it's been a good one. So
Now you run virtual events.
now I run virtual events, and it's awesome. But I totally agree about learning the new technologies and what's happening there. So how is this next phase of the pandemic affecting MSPs more specifically? I mean, with the business needs and the marketplace challenges, I mean, we were all kind of all, like you said, all over the board for a little bit, and now I think we're starting to clear that up. But what do you think?
I think this is a fantastic opportunity for MSPs. So my group at OpsRamp, all we do is work with regional and global MSPs. So we're having these conversations on a daily basis. And I think once we moved from that shock period, I think there's a tremendous opportunity here, and our MSP customers are starting to see that. Clearly they're looking at how can they become more of all of their customers, all the enterprise customers are now really looking at the pain that they had before, which was living between two worlds where you had legacy and technology debt that you had to deal with at the same time. You're expanding your use of SaaS, expanding your use of cloud, wrestling with all the complexity that the new world provided you, and having to live between those two worlds. And now all of that has been that pain has been exacerbated, and it's a great opportunity for MSP partners to have that strategic relationship with these customers, to help them get through some of that pain, to give them that one vision that they're looking for, to get out of that siloed world, to help them create that central visibility that they need as they look across a hybrid IT world, and more things probably moving to cloud, so they can get that agile nimbleness that they need to support their work from home employees, to support their customers with a new, more vibrant digital experience, because that's the only way that now that we're communicating with all of our customers. So I think it's a great opportunity for MSPs to pivot from the old kind of ASP model, manage your mess for less, to a much more strategic partnership with their customers, and help them through this acceleration. Because what we're seeing, and we'll cover some of this a little bit later through a survey that we did, enterprise customers are accelerating their digital transformation, and the spend is continuing to go, and we're seeing that with a lot of our customers. So it's a great opportunity for these MSPs to step in and help them through this, because they need the help.
Definitely. And um, that's perfect leeway. I mean, as you said, from a recent OpsRamp survey, it looks like digital transformation is something a lot of IT leaders are paying closer attention to. I mean, I even know from our side of the business, it's something our CEO has continuously brought up, and making sure we are well aware of what Barracuda is wanting to do, and where we're transitioning our digital information and how we can do it. So how can MSPs support this digital transformation plan moving forward?
Yeah, and this is a great survey for those that haven't seen it. And I think our communications group is doing another one later. This was obviously early in the pandemic here in April, but there's a lot of these surveys that have come out now, right? And I think they're all telling you the same thing. This year, 73% of IT leaders plan on accelerating or maintaining the digital transformation. It makes me think of, when this pandemic first happened, Aaron, our team here is working with a very large global MSP, and they had this massive digital transformation initiative that we've been working with them on for a while. And in fact, we had just done a several-day workshop with them on site, and then this hit. And so I had a conversation with their executive vice president just to find out kind of how do we move forward in this kind of no man's land that we're living at the time, right? We weren't working, it wasn't moving forward, and couldn't meet, et cetera. And he said, this in no way changes our strategic direction. It may slow it for a period of time, but our strategic direction is the same. And we've now seen in the course of the last 30 days, that whole opportunity is accelerating significantly, right? And we're looking at something in the second half of this year. So I think that example is no different than what a lot of our customers and all of the end users are going through that we work with. So it's really, this as our customers and the enterprise are trying to support this new world, this remote workforce, this work from home. You've got security issues, reliability issues. You need to make sure that they have that great, exceptional digital, customer experiences. They're only interacting with their customers through their laptops. So how can you make that as rich and as vibrant and as easy to use as possible? And so as your customers are dealing with that, the MSP has got to make sure that they've got a set of service offerings that can help them get there, so that they can provide that type of service to their employees and that type of service to their end customers. And I think, something that we're seeing, and I think there's the survey in another future slide, but one of the biggest gaps that enterprises have, and at OpsRamp we sell both to the enterprise and to the MSP, so we're hearing it on both sides, is they just don't have that strategic expertise. They don't have strategic skill set. And they've always known that. But this, I think, pandemic, this push to a new business operating model, this push to remote workforce, this push to only interacting with your clients through online interaction has only pushed that skill set gap even further. And so I think MSPs with the right skill set, with the right level of expertise, can really help bridge that gap and go from a, maybe a more transactional type of partner with their enterprise to a much more strategic partner and a much more strategic conversation. And that's where all the MSPs, that's where everyone wants to get, right? That's the sticky conversation. That's the value added conversation. That's the seat at the table that, everyone's been fighting for a while. And I think they now have that opportunity to do that. And this digital transformation, this acceleration to go forward to support that next new business model, that new operating model that we're all living in today, provides that opportunity for all of these MSPs.
Perfect. Yeah, definitely. So now that we've kind of covered that digital side and trying to find that transformation, how can an MSP cost effectively make this shift to offer these experiences and in the enterprise cloud design and in management and the DevOps, there's a lot of different programs and opportunities out there. If they don't already have those skills, what can they kind of look to do?
Yeah. Well, I think, there's a few things. I mean, first of all, it's recognizing the fact that their role is changing, right? And, the title of the slide here, I think, is appropriate. As the world for your customers changed, your world changed with it. And you've got to accept that and understand that. And I think really taking a look at, what are the gaps in your own business and how do those gaps reconcile with the gaps that your customers have? And we're seeing many of the MSPs that are customers of ours are hiring. I mean, we're living in a world right now where you have you had double-digit unemployment rates and millions of people entering the unemployment world. But the MSPs that we're dealing with, many of them are hiring aggressively, and they're trying to hire to get the new skill sets, right? And everything that we talked about before. So, because they are recognizing the fact that, as this bullet says, 60% of IT managers and directors say they'll heavily rely on MSPs for cost optimization, technical and security expertise. Again, that technical and security expertise that's being driven and accelerated because of the work from home, remote work environment that we're now living in. So I think it's a great opportunity for MSPs, regional and global MSPs, to really fill those skill set gaps and to help their customers get through this challenge that they're going through right now. And all of our customers need to, as the second bullet says, you got to do more with less. Not only does the client have to do more with less, because they're being forced by their executive team to look at a bigger spend in such areas as online collaboration and video tools and security and all these things to support the work from home environment. So how can we become more efficient with our IT spend, right? So they need to do more with less and figure out ways that they can maybe consolidate and reduce some of that technical debt that they have. MSPs are going through the same challenge, right? How can they also become much more efficient and do more with less and help their customers do more with less at the same time?
Definitely. And you kind of mentioned it, on the previous slide a little bit here, but is there really anything else that MSP should be considering to become more of that strategic partner and partnership with their customers?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really goes to, there's a few things. I think of this one conversation I had at the end of last week with one of our regional MSPs, a large MSP on the East Coast. And I just happened to be checking in with the CEO, and I said, "How is business going?" And he said they just had the best quarter. They finished in Q2, the best quarter that they've had in several years, which was a huge surprise to him because he wouldn't have guessed that, as this thing was breaking out in March. And I said, "Well, how is that?" And he said there's two service offerings that they have that are really driving the bulk of their business and the conversations with their customers. One is this kind of a strategic infrastructure advisor, helping their customers really understand what they have and what they need to move to maintain that nimbleness and that agility that they need to survive in today's world, right? Helping them design that public-private cloud type of enterprise and environment, and all the complexity that's involved around that from a management and a monitoring perspective, and the apps that are associated with that, and getting that all designed from end to end. And also looking at what are ways that they can reduce the technical debt, right? All these old legacy silo tools, hardware and software, all these old processes that don't work in today's world, the lack of scalability. I think as MSPs look at kind of the traditional business that they've done, and some are more advanced than others, but some are still doing that kind of, I'll manage your mess for less kind of approach, right? And that's a very tactical, where CIO is just trying to have you take over some of the more mundane tasks It's moved well beyond that now. And I think the MSP that embraces that, the MSP that looks at innovative service offerings like these two that I just mentioned, that this particular MSP was, seeing significant growth in Q2. I think those are the MSPs that are going to really take advantage of this opportunity. But, you got to embrace this change that's happening, and you got to be able to pivot yourself as all your customers are looking to pivot.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think this slide, really lays those things out, as well as a few more ideas that, you can put into place and really be able to take your business to the next level.
Oh, no question, no question. If you look at things here, like, the first two bullets are the ones that I just brought up. So it's kind of a nice segue into the slide. But those are two really important areas that every end customer enterprise is wrestling with today. Automation advisors. Automation is key. And in some ways, automation is going to actually eliminate some of the traditional service offerings that, the MSPs may have been providing to their customers up until this point. But there's new ways to take advantage of automation. Having that automation expertise, where you can talk about platforms and tools that have full remediation and leverage, the AI capability and the ML capability that are so prevalent today and that customers want to use today. And really take some of that manual intervention out of the equation, I think, is key. And, being that innovation enabler, right? The world is moving faster, and the complexity is growing, significantly. And it's leveraging the right technologies to allow your customers to pivot. I mean, no one would have guessed, if we talked about February, how fast this all could have changed. And in fact, I was at a dinner last night and we were talking about it was so stark to me as I traveled out to San Francisco from Boston, how much the world has changed. I mean, you can't walk down the street and get a breakfast sandwich as you get in your car and go to the office in the morning. And in some areas, obviously it's worse than others, right? California was a lot worse than Boston when I left. And so the world has changed in that, and no one would have guessed how fast it changed, over the course of the last 3 or 4 months. And I think it's now proven that, this could happen again. Other things could happen, good or bad, that you need to be able to help your customers pivot and react quickly. And they know that to do that, they can't rely on the legacy old tools that they've been handcuffed to for a while, but it's helping them get to the right new platforms, leverage the right new technologies, creating things that are leveraging automation and AI and machine learning, making things more simplistic in a very complex world. All of that kind of expertise is of significant value to the end customers.
Awesome. Yeah, those are 4 key areas really to get that potential for their services. So,
Yeah, and I think, Erin,
mhm.
one thing that I think everyone on this call would certainly recognize is traditionally MSPs have got a very good trusted advisor role with their customer now. So it's really just taking a step back as, the leader of that business and understanding, how do I make the leap from this trusted advisor, someone I've had a relationship for a long time, and have helped them keep the lights on for a long time. How do I become more than just a trusted advisor, but now that trusted strategic advisor with their customers? And that's really the big leap that has to be made. But I think there's several opportunities and several gaps today that allow and afford the MSPs to make the right jumps with their customers.
Definitely. That leads perfectly into kind of how you suggest that they go ahead and get started, kind of getting this transformation on and keeping their business rolling and having some of those best quarters that they could have.
Yeah. And listen, I don't think this is, rocket science. This is pretty straightforward stuff, but I think it's something that everyone is doing, whether you're an MSP, you're an end client, whatever business it is that you're in. You need to take a look at, the current business model that you have and how does that relate to the new customer realities, right? I think in one of the blogs that I wrote or articles that I wrote, it was about Chipotle, that saw an 81% surge last quarter in their online orders. And the only way they could take advantage of that is because they started making the shift and making the change 2 or 3 years ago with a new CEO that came on board, right? So they assessed their current business model and realized that they need to make some shifts to accommodate a more digital online type of ordering process. And so they had a lot of the things in place. So when this happened, they could react quickly and take advantage of it versus, being caught flat-footed and paying a price. You also got to take a look at what's the current technology stack that you have. And does it provide you the ability to adjust and pivot as quickly as we now need to adjust and pivot to accommodate our enterprise customers? and our small medium business customers, because the demands on them are increasing. The speed to which they need to pivot and change is increasing. That's going to continue. We need to make sure that we have the right technology stack and leveraging the right tools from an automation, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud perspective to help them make that shift as well. And then really taking a look at what are some of the new service offerings that you can provide, whether it's that technology debt assessment service offering, or it's that the other strategic infrastructure advisor service offering. Looking at your skill set, looking at the gaps that your customers have and the skill sets that they need, and devising and designing those right service offerings that help them make that leap and help them do it in a way that they can do it quickly, securely, and do it at scale, depending upon obviously the size of your customer. So, these are just, I think, 3 simple things to think about, but it certainly helps to get you moving in the right direction.
Definitely. So this was great information. I know, as I say, I always learn something new when I read an article or hear from you. So, but before we wrap things up, I want to give you an opportunity to remind our listeners, what is it that OpsRamp can offer them and help them as they go into these next steps?
Yeah, so I appreciate that, Aaron, and we'll make this quick. This kind of a quick commercial here, but I think the interesting thing about OpsRamp here is the product, the platform, the software was spawned by an MSP. So our 2 founders were running their own MSP. They had the same challenge back in 2014-15 that everyone on this call has today, which is how do I efficiently and cost effectively manage my customers' world, which is getting more and more complex as more workloads move to Azure, AWS, and Google, and Alibaba, and Oracle, and all these other cloud platforms. They were having a hard time maintaining adherence to the SLAs that they had, and it was not, the swivel chair effect was killing them. They were using multiple tools to do this. So they designed a platform, very similar if you look at how ServiceNow attacked the ITSM space. It's how we're attacking the ITOM space. We purposely built this as a platform and not a tool, to give you that single visibility to help solve that problem that our 2 founders had. So we've been in the MSP world. Our roots are in the MSP world. We get that. The company was founded in 2014. We've got almost 300 people now globally. We recently closed a round in earlier this year, which was our 2nd round, led by Morgan Stanley, and HPE also joined. Interesting about HPE, we signed a very large global contract with them last year. We are central to their GreenLake hybrid cloud service management offering, as well as their GreenLake Ops Console offering, which is essentially a white labeled OpsRamp. They were customer first, and they afterwards wanted to invest in us as well. So they joined that round, which I think speaks volume about their trust in us. So we've got some great partners that you can see here. We've got some great customers. The platform's currently on, which you probably go to the next slide, Aaron. We're currently on version 7.0, so it's certainly a mature platform, but it allows you the capability to take in data from many different areas, from the web or applications, et cetera. We really look at this thing holistically, from hybrid discovery and monitoring, event incident management, remediation, automation. So from discovery to remediation, as we like to refer to it as, one platform, heavily leveraging that AI ops type of capability so that we can help you with that self-remediation, alert correlation and notification, et cetera. So it's a complete end-to-end, as we look at it, as a unified digital operations platform.
Awesome. Fantastic. Yeah, you guys really have a lot to offer. And if someone wanted to reach out and learn more, how could they touch base with you, or where should they go to learn more about what you guys have to offer?
Sure. I could be reached jim.lampert, Lampert, at opsramp.com. Feel free to shoot me a note, or you can always check us out at www.opsramp.com as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And, kind of helps lead us into our final slide here as we wrap up today. If you haven't read his article on Smarter MSP yet, this is we use that as the basis of our conversation today, but, it's a really great read. And I know you have some other articles out there on our sites and on other sites. So follow Jim. He has some great advice for you guys. As well as OpsRamp has recently put out a survey around this topic, which could help, lead those conversations a little deeper where you may need them to. And then from the Barracuda MSP side, we have the MSP Improvement Plan ebook, which can be used and be helpful at any time, not just during these crazy uncertain times, but at any time with your business. It's always helpful. And then lastly, to get any up-to-date industry views and thoughts from thought leaders like OpsRamp and some other industry leaders, join smartermsp.com today. So with that, as we wrap up, Jim, again, thank you so much for your time and joining us today. It was great to get this insight. I think it's really going to help MSPs continue to grow as we take the next step in this crazy, uncertain world, but it should be good. And just a reminder, everybody else, we'll be sharing the recording of this conversation with you within the next 24 hours or so. But if you have any questions, please don't ever hesitate to reach out to barracudamsp.com or out to Jim himself. So thank you for your time today, everyone.
Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate your time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a
Take
great
care.
day.
Bye-bye.